I was working at a tourist information desk in Rome when an American couple asked what time the Colosseum was built. Not what year, what time of day. The husband explained they wanted to visit at the exact same time to get the authentic historical energy. This is the kind of global logic I document, so you don't have to experience it firsthand. If decoding peak tourist psychology is your thing, you're already in the right channel. Might as well make it official. His wife was taking notes. When I said it took decades to build, he asked if I could narrow it down to morning or afternoon construction hours. She suggested we check the original contractor's schedule. I was working as a tour guide in Paris when a woman asked why French people don't just speak English since everyone knows it's the universal language. She said her tax dollars basically funded their freedom, so the least they could do is accommodate her linguistically. When I explained French is their native language, she offered to start a petition to make English mandatory in tourist areas. She already had 67 signatures from her cruise ship. I was working at a hotel in Amsterdam when a guest demanded we turn off the canals at night because the water sounds were keeping him awake. He claimed he was allergic to ambient water noise. When I explained the canals are permanent waterways, not a fountain feature, he asked to speak to the city's water manager. He presented a medical form from his chiropractor, diagnosing him with aquatic frequency sensitivity syndrome. Most people scroll past this kind of field research. The ones who subscribe, they're collecting case studies in real time. It's not entertainment. It's cultural anthropology disguised as comedy. I was working at a pub in London when an American asked if we had any food that wasn't British because he only eats American cuisine. When I suggested the fish and chips, he said fish is from the ocean, not America. I mentioned hamburgers originated in Germany, and he said that's impossible because hamburgers are literally named after ham, which was invented in Texas. His logic was completely confident and entirely geographical. What was working at a train station in Brussels when a woman asked why European trains don't have drive-through windows like American fast food. She explained she's a mobile learner and absorbs information better when in motion without stopping. When I said trains do move, she clarified she meant her personal vehicle should be able to drive onto the train. She had sketched a diagram showing how her SUV could fit in a passenger car. I was working at a museum in Berlin when a man insisted the Berlin Wall was built backwards because walls should keep people out, not in. He said as an American, he knows walls, and this one violated basic wall principles. When I explained it was designed to prevent East Germans from leaving, he suggested they just should have built a second wall facing the other direction. He called it bilateral barrier theory. I was working at a vineyard in Tuscany when a couple asked if the wine was gluten-free because they don't eat wheat products from Europe. The wife explained, European gluten has different molecules than American gluten due to the age of the soil. When I said wine is made from grapes, she insisted all alcohol contains grain contamination. She brought a home gluten testing kit and demanded to test our Chianti. The test strip turned blue, which she claimed proved contamination. But it was actually just wine. I was working at a gondola service in Venice when a man asked why we don't just pave the canals and turn them into roads like normal cities. He calculated it would save millions in boat maintenance and water treatment costs. When I explained the canals are Venice's entire identity and UNESCO heritage, he said that's just sunk cost fallacy and showed me a PowerPoint presentation on his phone titled Venice Modernization Initiative. He had projected ROI calculations. Was working at the Eiffel Tower when a woman asked what year they planned to take it down since it was just built for an exhibition. When I said it's been permanent since 1889, she argued keeping temporary structures is false advertising. She demanded a refund because she specifically came to see a limited-time installation. Her husband suggested they sue for emotional distress caused by architectural permanence deception. I was working at a chocolate shop in Switzerland when a customer asked if our chocolate was made with Swiss cheese because that's what Switzerland is famous for. He said all Swiss products should contain cheese for brand consistency. When I explained chocolate and cheese are completely different products, he insisted brand diversification is inefficient. He proposed we create cheese-infused chocolate and brought a bag of shredded cheddar to demonstrate his vision. The smell cleared the shop. I was working at a castle in Scotland when a family asked why the castle didn't have elevators, since it's clearly not ADA compliant. The father explained his son has gravitational resistance syndrome and can't handle staircases built before 1950. When I mentioned the castle was built in the 1200s, he said that proves it needs to be updated to modern accessibility standards. He threatened to report us to the International Historical Building Commission, which doesn't exist. I was working at a cafe in Vienna when a woman sent back her coffee 3 times because it tasted too European. She wanted it to taste more American, which apparently means weaker and sweeter. When I offered to add more hot water and sugar, she said that's not authentic American coffee. That's modified European coffee. She asked if we could import Folgers beans and rebrew it. She was willing to wait 45 minutes for shipping. I was working at the Louvre when a man asked why the Mona Lisa was so small when the posters make it look bigger. He accused the museum of engaging in false advertising and size manipulation. When I explained Renaissance paintings are generally modest in scale, he said modern consumers expect large-format entertainment. He suggested we commission a life-size remake and put the original in storage. He estimated it would increase visitor satisfaction by 38% based on a survey he created. I was working at a Greek restaurant in Athens when a customer insisted we were appropriating Greek culture because he's 1/16 Greek and we didn't have his permission. He demanded 20% of our revenue as cultural royalty payments. When I pointed out the restaurant is in Greece, run by Greek people, he said, geographical location doesn't determine authenticity. His great-great-grandfather was from Crete, which gave him intellectual property rights over gyros. He brought a family tree laminated as evidence. I was working at a train platform in Barcelona when a woman asked which direction the train to Italy goes. When I pointed east, she insisted Italy is south because it's shaped like a boot, and boots point down. She had a compass app that she said proved south is the only logical direction. When the train arrived going east, she refused to board because she doesn't trust horizontal geography. She's still waiting for a vertical train. I was working at a beer hall in Munich when a man asked if Oktoberfest happens every October or just sometimes. When I confirmed it's annual, he asked why they don't space it out more to keep it exclusive. He suggested moving it to every 4 years like the Olympics to increase demand and prestige. He was serious about this and pitched it like a business proposal. He called it scarcity-based festival optimization. I was working at a pharmacy in Dublin when a woman asked if Irish medication is compatible with American bloodstreams. She claimed Americans have different immune systems due to our frontier ancestry and pioneer genetics. When I explained medicine is based on chemistry, not nationality, she showed me a blog post about American exceptionalism in biological functions. She asked if we carried freedom-based antibiotics instead. I was working at Stonehenge when a family asked what time the stones turn on. The daughter was very disappointed when I said they don't do anything. Her father insisted all major tourist attractions have shows and demanded to know the light display schedule. When I explained Stonehenge is an ancient monument, not a theme park, he suggested we install LED lights and a soundtrack. He said without entertainment value, it's just old rocks, which is discrimination against modern attention spans. I was working at a hotel in Prague when a guest complained that Prague is too European and asked if there was a more American part of the city. He wanted familiar chain restaurants and signs in English only. When I recommended the tourist district, he said that's still too foreign. He asked if we could designate an American-only zone where Europeans aren't allowed. He was drafting a proposal for cultural segregation zones to improve his vacation experience. I was working at the Anne Frank house in Amsterdam when someone asked if Anne Frank was available for photos. When I explained she died in 1945, they asked if we had an actress who plays her on weekends. They were upset there was no interactive component and suggested we add a meet-and-greet experience. They said historic sites should offer more engagement opportunities. Their solution was hiring historical reenactors for selfie stations. I was working at a ski resort in the Alps when a man demanded we lower the mountains because the altitude was affecting his performance. He claimed he paid for a premium skiing experience and the current elevation was false advertising. When I said mountains can't be lowered, he threatened to leave a 1-star review for geographical inflexibility. If this level of international logic makes you feel both enlightened and concerned for humanity, you'll want to stay close. I track these encounters full-time, so you don't have to. Subscribe and consider it weekly proof that satire writes itself. He suggested we excavate the peaks and create a more customer-friendly slope gradient. He'd already contacted his lawyer about natural landmark modification rights. I was working at a restaurant in Lisbon when a woman asked why Portuguese food isn't just Spanish food with a different name. She said Portugal is basically Spain's little brother, so the cuisine should be identical. When I explained Portugal has distinct culinary traditions, she insisted that's just marketing. She demanded we change the menu to Spanish labels because that's what Americans recognize. She said brand confusion is a legitimate complaint under international tourism law, which she made up. I was working at a bookstore in Copenhagen when a customer asked where our English translation section was for Danish books written in English. When I explained those books are already in English, he said he specifically wants books translated from English to American, because British English has too many extra letters. He was looking for books converted to simplified American spelling. He refused to buy anything with color or favorite in it. He called it dialect discrimination. I was working at a bike rental in Stockholm when a woman asked if Swedish bikes are compatible with American riding styles. She claimed her cycling technique was developed in Ohio and might not transfer to European bicycles. When I showed her the bikes work exactly the same, she insisted on a test compatibility session to confirm her muscle memory would translate. She brought her own seat because American seats are ergonomically superior. She spent 20 minutes adjusting it and never actually rode anywhere.